Good morning, folks. Councilman Rasmussen here, coming to you with my update from our Smyrna Town Council meeting on Monday, March 17th, 2025. Start off with just general updates and information. Again, most of this is in our town tidbits, but I think some things that are important. As far as things that are upcoming, this last week, yard waste collection started again. It runs from March 10th through December 11th. So now you can get your yard waste container out in front of your house. Downtown where I'm at, it's Tuesday morning collection. It's either usually Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. Make sure you check and find out on the town website what your yard waste collection day is, and then you can get it out there and do all of that. In addition, or going along with that, we also have our spring cleanup scheduled. So this is the opportunity for you to put out those larger items that do not fit into your garbage can. They are not yard waste. We're looking at things that are, if there's a couch or a chair or something like that that needs to get picked up. From April 21st through May 2nd, our town crew is going to be driving around town. Every day they're driving up and down all around town with our tipper truck, loading as much of this stuff into it as they can, and then they take it up and they dump it. We do this twice a year, once in the spring and once in the fall. So if you have those items, make sure you get them out there. There are things, hazardous materials, things like that we cannot collect. So those are still things that you would need to arrange or take to one of the transfer stations yourself. But all of those other kind of items, the big things that you need to get rid of, you can get those out and our guys will come around and get it. That's April 21st through May 2nd. So if you're going to do some spring cleanup, you got a couple of weeks to start putting those things together that you want to get rid of. I'll make sure that I remind people of this coming up. Other events, so one of the big ones certainly is going to be the town election scheduled for April 29th. It runs 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. You can vote at Town Hall. That's the only place in town where you can vote is at Town Hall. So you have to do that. You can register to vote at Town Hall as well if you're not already registered to vote in the town elections. So head in there and you can register to vote as well. In addition to the scheduling of the election, so well, actually, I'll mention this in the meeting because it's on the normal agenda stuff. So those are the big things. There's also coming up on March 25th. It's not actually in the town of Smyrna, but it impacts the town of Smyrna, so people might be interested in it. DelDOT, the Dover Kent MPO, are hosting a workshop. It's technically in Clayton, but it's talking about the Route 6 heading west out of Clayton, those intersections of the couple of intersections right around like where Southern States is. I don't know the names of each one of those little roads, but they're just like we've done for some of the other intersections that tend to be problematic. Kent MPO is doing a planning effort to look at some of those intersections. They want to gather public feedback, public input. So if you're interested in this, this is about it's School Lane, Bassett Lane, Rodney Street intersections, and Wheatley Pond Road intersections, where they all intersect with routes 300 going out of town. If you're interested in participating and providing some feedback to that workshop is coming up on March 25th. It's from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Clayton Fire Hall. There's usually a couple of workshops that go along with these efforts. So this isn't, like I said, in the town of Smyrna, but it does impact a lot of people in the town of Smyrna who drive up and down 300 there and know kind of how those intersections can be pretty problematic, especially if there's any traffic. So like I said, March 25th, 5 to 7 p.m. at the Clayton Fire Hall if you'd like to go out and give a little bit of input to that. One other thing that I mentioned last night in my comments, on Friday this last week, we had the opportunity to dedicate the second of the murals that we got funded to put in downtown Smyrna here. This was a grant, about $30,000 grant from the T-Mobile Hometown Grant Program. They sponsored the creation of two murals, one which went in June on West Commerce Street, really featuring Bombay Hook and our connection to Bombay Hook. The second mural was installed last week and dedicated on Friday. This one is dedicated to Richard Allen. Richard Allen was an enslaved individual outside of Smyrna here who went on to purchase his freedom, started the AME churches along with Absalom Jones, was a very, very early leader in the abolition and civil rights and movement. He's got a really, really cool history. And there's now a very, very nice mural that's dedicated to it. And fortunately for everybody, so you don't have to go out and read the books about him, there are some really cool little pieces of information that we integrated into that mural, so it tells that story very well. If you're driving up Main Street, you'll see it. It's on the building that's right next to the Opera House. But really, really cool. Go out, check it out. I think it's a really neat story, something that more people in our community should know about. And we were very happy to have support from T-Mobile to be able to fund these two pieces of downtown art. Certainly is my hope that we can do more art projects, more things that integrate history and culture into our downtown. We've already applied for additional funding through the Duck Creek Historical Society. I see you on there, Brooks. To try and do some more historical photograph murals and some informational signage around town. Hopefully we'll get some additional funding. More of this kind of stuff are ways that we can engage people in telling the past, the present, and ideally the future of our community. And I really like to see more of that. So hopefully these two first murals are the stepping stones to seeing a lot more of these type of things in our downtown. So I was really happy to have that dedicated on Friday. So lots of other things, to-dos coming up. Check out the town tidbits and the town events calendar on the website to find out a lot more about all of that other stuff that's happening. On to the actual meeting agenda from last night. So we did not have any public hearings or anything before, so we started at 7 o'clock as we usually do. Our old business items, we really had two things. These were both second readings. One was for ordinance number 5-25. This is the one updating our school district impact fees. So this is something that's 20 years overdue at this point, where the school district conducted a study to determine what the appropriate impact fees should be for new development. They brought that study to us, asked us to then implement the recommended impact fees that are part of that study, which we agreed to do. In order to do that, we have to do 3 readings of an ordinance updating it. So this was the second of those 3 readings. It will need to be approved one more time before those updated impact fees go into place. As I've said this before, if you've watched my videos, impact fees are not something that is paid by people who currently live here. It's paid by the developers or the people who are buying those new homes that would be being built that help fund the construction of new schools. Unfortunately, when impact fees are not updated on a regular basis, it means the school district has to do something like go out for a capital referendum. That is different than an operating referendum like what just happened this last weekend. But if they have to go out for additional capital funds to build schools, then obviously that's a cost that's passed on to everyone versus a cost that's passed on to just the developers, the people building new property. So that's why it's important that we regularly update impact fees. We've now updated the impact fees for the fire and ambulance station, for all of the other municipal impact fees. This is the last of the impact fees that we need to make sure is updated. And the school district has gone out to the town of Clayton and to Kent County, both asking them to mirror this and update their impact fees as well, so that they're able to collect the amount of money that they need to plan for new school construction going forward. So second reading, it passed. It will be on for one more reading at our next council meeting. The second ordinance that we had our second reading of was ordinance number 7-25. This one is an update to the rental property ordinances. This is one of those ones that we have to do because there are people who are bad people, bad actors, basically. We have never before required that if you are renting property to a family member, that you actually have to go through a rental inspection to make sure that that property actually meets code. It was just assumed, I guess, that if you were renting property to somebody in your family, you would be doing the right thing. That is not the case. And So we've had to update our code to make sure that all rental properties, even those being rented to family members, have to get a regular rental inspection when that property changes hands or before somebody is able to rent it, to make sure that it meets code. Again, second reading of this, we will see it one more time at our next council meeting. That was the old business items that we had. On the new business side, so the first thing we needed to do was actually approve the list of candidates who are going to be running for office this year. There are 3 positions that are open for elected office: the mayor, one of our at-large council members, and the District 1 council seat. The mayor position has 2 people running for it, Councilwoman Tabitha Gotts and George Coates. The at-large district has 4 people running for it. I am one of them because this is my council seat and I am running for re-election. Myself, Ken Olson, Anoyne Miles, who I believe goes by Ken Miles. I heard somebody refer to him as Ken, or Keith maybe, and Deborah Camerata. Those are the 4 candidates that are running for the at-large seat. The District 1 seat, Nelson Drew is the only person who registered to run for that. So because there's only one person on the ballot, Nelson, you're going to be a council person. So this election, we have to approve that candidate list. It's a sort of a formal process. This is the first year that we have required everybody to submit background checks in advance of approving this list because of issues that happened last time. So we all had to go and do our state background checks and everything in order to have our names on this list and be signed off on, just in case you were wondering. So we approved that list of candidates for those council seats, and we also approved or set a date and time for a Meet the Candidates night. This is going to be on April 7th at Town Hall. It's from, oh no, sorry, not April 7th, April 14th at Town Hall from 6 to 8 p.m. This is all of the candidates running for office are allowed to come, be there, sit down at a table and have people come over and chat with you. It's a chance for you to ask questions, meet people you may not know, those sort of things. So I'll certainly be there if anybody wants to come say hi. We then moved on to probably one of the bigger things that we do from an importance standpoint, which is actually approving the tax bills. So this is done as a resolution, and there's a bunch of things in here. This is us approving the tax list to be posted of all of the different properties and what their assessed value is. It is also where we approve exemptions from the taxes. So there are lots and lots of exempt buildings in town that do not pay town property taxes. So that would include county buildings, federal buildings, municipal buildings, school buildings, nonprofits, which in this case is mostly just churches, open space exemptions where there's an open piece of land, so this is like parks. There are also a list of council exemptions. This is actually one where I asked a question about this. I asked it last year, because there's at least one piece of property on our council exemption list that no one knows why is on there. It's a commercial property out on Route 13. So I asked this question again last night. Why is this commercial property on Route 13 receiving a tax exemption? No one seems to know. So to me, that indicates there's probably not a good reason, or maybe there was a good reason years ago, but that reason isn't valid anymore. So council or the town staff is going to be investigating that and potentially just removing that one property off of the list if there isn't actually a good reason to have it on there. This is also where we approved the senior citizen tax exemptions for remember this last year we updated our senior tax exemption to also include people who are on permanent disability. So that is an expansion of what we have offered. We actually have our senior tax exemption is more generous than pretty much everyone else in the state. But the one thing we didn't offer it to were people who were on permanent disability. So we changed our code last year to allow people on permanent disability to also apply for a tax exemption. It is an exemption of $30,000 of the assessed value of your home. So if your home was assessed at $100,000, it would only be taxed at $70,000 if you receive this exemption. There has been, for the last couple of months, there's been an opportunity for people to apply for this. We receive a list of all the people who've applied for it, and we approve that list as far as the posting. So this is when we post all of this. Oh, sorry, there's more to this. Like I said, this is a big deal. It is also where we will make additions to tax bills. So if there are utility bills that are unpaid, we add those on to your taxes. If there are vacant building fees that are unpaid, we add those on to your taxes. The reason why we do that is because in some cases it can be very hard to collect utilities and vacant building fees. You can turn off somebody's utilities, but if they're not in that building, they don't really care, right? So it can just sit there for a long time. Adding them on to the taxes gives us the ability to ultimately, if they don't pay their taxes, then we can actually go after them and force those properties into sheriff's sale. There's not a lot of properties. We're not talking about epic numbers of places in town that do this, but we do have, every year we have those folks who just kind of don't want to do their part for one reason or another. And we try and work with pretty much everybody who comes to the town and says, hey, I have an issue or I need an extension. Those things, our town staff does a fantastic job of trying to make sure that we understand and work with folks. But we have people who just don't show up, don't care, don't pay. And in the end, that hurts our entire community. So by adding those items to their tax bill, what it means is that we can then either force them to pay it. If they sell the property, then we can collect it through those taxes versus trying to go after the property owner individually, or if necessary, force the house into sheriff's sale, which usually gets your taxes paid. So we approve all of this list. All of these lists get posted. There is then an opportunity for people to appeal those assessments. Most people's don't change during the course of a year. The only people's that change is if you have an addition to your tax bill, or if you've done like an addition onto your house or something, and your house has had an update to your assessment. We have what's called the appeals board. I am going to be serving on that appeals board. Monday, April 7th at 6:30 p.m. is the appeals. So if you want to appeal your assessment, there's a whole process to do this. You reach out to the town, you let them know that you have an issue with it, and then you can ultimately come to the appeals board and state your case, and the appeals board can listen to you and then make a recommendation to council on whether or not they think your appeal is a valid appeal. I've served on this board, I think, for 4 years. 3 out of those 4 years, no one has showed up for the appeals board, so we just kind of sit there for half an hour and see if anybody shows. We have had in all those years, just one person has ever showed up to make an appeal. Typically, if there is an error or something, you work with the town staff. The town staff can figure it out, and you don't have to come for that. It's more about if you just straight disagree and you want to make a case. So the tax assessment lists are being posted. If yours has changed or you have an addition to your bill, you will receive information from the town about that. If you want to appeal it, you can reach out to the town, and ultimately on April 7th, we'll have the appeals board meeting prior to our council meeting that night. So that's a big piece of all of the sort of operational stuff that we do every year, is proving all of those tax pieces. It's multiple steps over a certain amount of time, so you'll hear about this more over the course of the next month and a half. Then we got on to something that was actually kind of fun and expected by a lot of people, which was the hiring of a new town manager. So as most people know, about a little bit more than a year ago, our town manager resigned, and Chief Torrey James stepped up to be the interim town manager. He has been in that position now for a little bit more than a year, and has been doing a great job in doing so. So what we did is we created a job description. We posted that job description. Torrey applied for that position, and the mayor negotiated a contract with him that was ultimately presented to the town council to review. and the town council approved that contract, so Tori is now hired to be our official town manager. He will be taking on that position starting on July 1st. His role as the chief of police, there are a number of things that he needs to be in that role for a little while longer to make sure that he can manage some of the stuff that he has and ultimately plan through what a transition will look like for the police department. So he will be starting in his official capacity as the just town manager, not town manager and chief of police, come July 1st. I think everyone on town council, this is a unanimous vote. Tori has been a great addition to the town staff. I think that we've got a lot of things going on. There's a lot of craziness and things that we're trying to get caught up on. There's still a lot of work to do. But I think Tori has actually really enjoyed this. At least he says he has. I don't know if that's true or not. But and I think he's been doing a very, very good job. It's been a lot of fun to sort of see him grow into and begin to enjoy this position. And we're excited to have him take over that role as a full-time permanent role come July 1st. As in most cases, it's a 3-year contract. That's one of the things that's different about the town manager than any other employee in town is the town manager is a contracted employee. So they're hired on a contract and that contract is negotiated separately, differently than any other employee in town. So we did that July 1st. You can congratulate Tori already if you want to, but officially he starts July 1st as the formal town manager. And then the last thing was a continuation of a conversation that we've had a few different times about the library property. So at our last council meeting, the library came to the council to ask about the council potentially forgiving some of the debt that is owed to the town for the buildings that were purchased to create the space where the library is being built. So some history for this. We actually asked the attorney to put together a memo for town council so that we could have all that history in one place so that we could get to understand it. I'll give you the high level version of it. In 2014, the town of Smyrna acquired 2 properties, one from the Wagners where they had a daycare center and another vacant property that was over on South Street in order to put together a large piece of property that could be utilized for building a new library. Those 2 properties had a total cost of $400,000, $350,000 for one and $50,000 for the other. The agreement that was made with the Friends of Duck Creek Regional Library at the time was that when the library is built, that the Friends of Duck Creek will repay the town for the costs of acquiring those pieces of property. And the funds that were used to acquire those pieces of property were funds out of what is called the town's, we call it the budget reserve. Most people refer to it as the rainy day fund. There's not a lot of clarity and there's not a lot of written agreements. This is an unfortunate thing that I see far too much, is that there's a lot of, well, so-and-so said this and so-and-so said that. There is an MOU that exists with the library that's saying that they will repay those funds. It doesn't clearly state that those funds will go back into the rainy day fund, and that's a question of whether or not that was supposed to happen or not. But one of the things that it did say is that as the town collects rent on that property, and we continued to rent the property back to the Wagners for a while after that, half the rent the town collected would be applied to the balance of what the library owes the town. So we ended up collecting about $108,000. That reduces the total that the library technically owes the town for those properties down to about $346,000. They had also asked whether or not they had asked whether the town would waive some of that in order to, because there were additional costs that the library had to do some asbestos abatement in the old school district administration building that was given to them as part of this, or leased to them. Sorry, not given to them. It's not sold to them, not given to them. The town retains ownership of all that land. We just signed a 99-year lease with the library so that they could build that, and they're utilizing it. In the end, after going through all of this, the library agreed to take on that property as is, as part of the agreement, And so ultimately they withdrew their request to have the town cover some of their costs for the abatement because it wasn't, they agreed to take it as is, and there shouldn't be an expense to the town for it. So there's a lot of back and forth on this. It's a pretty complicated thing because it's been going on for well more than a decade, and probably more complicated than it needed to be for a variety of reasons. But in the end, the library is moving forward. They're shooting for a mid to late May opening date. If you're driving past there now, the facade is mostly done. They're moving in equipment. The town library over in the first floor of the Smyrna Opera House has officially been closed as of last week. They're now going to start moving those collections, the computers, all of the other stuff, all the stuff that the new library wants. It's going to be moved out of there over into the new building. That existing space where the old library is, the Smyrna Opera House is going to be taking that on in order to build out some more new event space, meeting space, and things like that. So over the course of the next year or so, that space is going to be transformed, which I'm pretty excited about. And ultimately, our new library is going to be open, hopefully late. They said mid-May last night, probably late May. But I think it's really, really exciting to see a big modern library. They've got, I believe Rick Horsey presented last night. I think he said they've hired most of their staff at this point. I believe 3 full-time staff and about 7 part-time staff to run all of the different collections and areas and manage it. Really expecting to see some awesome stuff going on there. So there will be more to come. One of the things the library asked is whether or not the town of Smyrna will consider making an annual contribution to the library. They receive funding from Kent County, from Newcastle County, from the state. So the question is, and they're going to ask around as many people as they can to try and get allocations to help support the ongoing funding of that. Certainly the town of Smyrna no longer has to run our own library, which was costing us a couple $100,000 a year, so it's not an unreasonable request to ask that we chip in something to help facilitate a new library downtown, which I expect will generate a lot more traffic downtown in a good way. That libraries bring in lots and lots of people for all sorts of events at different times of the day. Hopefully that leads to more people walking around downtown and stopping in our shops and having lunch and doing things like that. So I think the economic benefit of having the library downtown will be felt for a very, very long time, and it's a worthwhile thing for the town to consider supporting going forward. So there was no movement or no actions, no votes or anything about that last night. It was more just updates and ongoing conversation. And that was pretty much it. That was everything on our agenda. So more to come on a few of those. You'll hear about those items, at least the bills, a couple of more times. You'll hear more about the tax assessments and that as we move forward. And you'll certainly start hearing about and seeing about things having to do with the election. I went and got my signs out of my basement and put the first one in front of my house this morning. So there'll be a lot more of that stuff going on. But regardless of who you're interested in voting for, put it on your calendar to vote April 29th. And it's going to be at Town Hall. So make sure you get out there and vote and do your civic duty. Thank you, everyone. As always, if there are questions or anything that I can do, reach out to me, and I'm happy to help. And have a wonderful Tuesday.